Danette's the only,
Oh,
Danette's the only person not like the others. She doesn't need glasses.
oh, we all have
We're here.
glasses. That's funny.
Okay.
Oh. All right, this is our Public Art Advisory Committee, Tuesday, February 15th at 4:30 p.m. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and the committee, while allowing for public participation. The public may address the committee using exclusively remote public comment options. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. To address the committee, staff or people may join this meeting or they may email aibera@brisbaneca.org or text 415-407-2675. Special assistance, if you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact myself as early as possible so we can make accommodations. And let's take a quick roll call. Councilmember Cunningham,
I am here.
Councilmember Davis,
Here.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee,
Here.
Committee Member Danette Davis,
Here.
Committee Member Grossman,
Here.
Committee Member Ms. Salmon.
Here.
Okay, great. Let's see, and the call to the order is at 4:34.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee,
Aye.
Committee Member Davis,
Aye.
Committee Member Grossman,
Aye.
Committee Member Salmon.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Next item on the agenda is the discussion, beginning the discussion for the Baylands master plan. And the goal of this is just to really begin that big picture question. We sent out a large number of different master plans from other cities, big cities, small cities, cities close by, cities far away. We also included in the packet a paper done at the University of Kentucky talking about public art master plans to give a broader scope than just a single master plan, but to give an overall view. And when you think about the Baylands, I think the real question that the committee is going to be dealing with is that this master plan really needs to be a living, breathing document. This project will probably take 30 or more years to develop. When you think about the 80 acres at Sierra Point, the plan was approved in 1984, and we're now in 2022, and we're getting to the point where it's almost complete. So 40 years later, and if we had asked what kind of a public art master plan would you put in place in 1984, it would look very different from what you'd be putting in place today. So I think, my perspective is that whatever we do, it should be something that where it doesn't have the feel of finality to it. It should have the feel that it's open and for future interpretation. As I said, we sent out a lot of paper or disk space to everybody. I wouldn't really expect everybody to read every line of every master plan or every line of the paper from the University of Kentucky. But what I was hoping for was that people would thumb through it, get a sense of what they liked, what are the components in some of the master plans they liked. Was there a style of master plan that they thought was more interesting than others? All the master plans talked about the different elements in the master plan, but they also talked about how they developed the master plan, who they interviewed, who they thought the stakeholders were. I think the city of Carlsbad showed you the questions that they asked as part of it. So I think there was just a lot of information there that you can glean and say, we like this kind of style of master plan. I was just reviewing them again today. And, I was going through them and I said, oh, I look at one and then I look at another one. I go, this is done by the same person. It was done by Barbara Goldstein because she has a very distinct style of how she wants her master plans to look. And, if that's, so part of this is if there's a style of the master plan, I want to make sure that we're including whoever did that master plan in the RFP process, at least sending them a personal note saying, we'd be interested in having you propose. That doesn't mean that they would get the job, but it means that at least we're reaching out to people that we know has a style that we like. And really if you think about this, the Baylands it is a very large development, and we all know that. I mean, we all recognize that. The last time I looked at numbers for the preparation to get it going, I think it was like $1.5 billion was the cost a few years ago to do all of the land work, to do the streets, to do the water, sewer, to do the bridge work and all that. And then if you put on top of that the types of buildings that they were going to want to put on it, my guess is, probably the buildings alone will cost $10 billion when all is said and done. And if you think about a $10 billion project, you're talking 1% of that, 100 million for art. I don't think that we as a city, I don't think the developer or whoever builds all the buildings are going to write a check to the city for the full 100 million. So I don't think that the city is going to have full control over what the art will be on it. So I think what this master plan will do, though, is really give strong guidance to the private sector as to what this community at this point in time would like to see. And then as this community may change over time, maybe the master plan changes to reflect what is happening. As 40 years ago, Angel made the comment, you could put oil on the ground and call that art. We would never do that today. 40 years ago, you could have statues that you would never put up today. So you want to make sure that whatever this document is, and that the people who help us create this document understand that the art world is a changing world, that society is changing, and art is reflective of society and helps drive change in society. And you want to, and I think those are the kinds of things that, as you're going through a process of finding the right master plan person, company, or whatever, those are the kinds of things I think need to be kept in mind. And what I'm hoping for today as a staff person is that you can give, this committee can start coming up with ideas of what they would like to see as part of the RFP for the master plan, and what are the values that they would like to have stated in an RFP, so that way the right people respond to the RFP. So hopefully with that is, as an introduction, the committee can have a good conversation about, what they would like to see in the master plan. And Angel and I will take notes, and we'll reflect that back to you and see if we got it right. I see Madison's hand is up first.
So I just, based on what you said, kind of had a question, because all of these that we're looking at seem to be based around the city's approach to art as a whole. And I think that we as a committee are still kind of trying to figure out how we're navigating our approach to art as a whole for Brisbane. And so I'm wondering if it makes more sense to work on Brisbane's master plan, art master plan, just like each of these cities has done for themselves, and allow that to be the framework that we work off of for the Baylands, for biotech companies at the marina, for whatever else help guide us in how we choose and think about projects. But I just don't know, like, none of these things that I'm evaluating that's been provided are based on a particular project. They're all encompassing of the whole city, and then projects, are using this as a basis to move forward. So I'm wondering if our focus should be on something that's citywide, that all the projects that are going to come before the Baylens, because we're going to have many of them that are going to reach the art implementation point before the Baylens, have some technical working document to interact with. So I don't know, that was just what struck me as I'm starting to think more about this.
You're getting thumbs up on there. So, I mean, it does make sense, it does make sense what you're saying. And let me try and interpret it for how I hear it, and everybody else, jump in, is that to say that the Baylands is distinct from the city and has its own master plan would be doing a disservice to the community as a whole. That in order to have that the city should have a coherent idea of art, and that the Baylands will be part of that coherent idea of art, and therefore it will flow within the entire city and not seem as if it's, and using Beth's term, plop art.
Well, and I think that what will happen is Crocker Trail, right? It might have its own individual plan relative to art. Baylands might have its own plan relative to art. But I think we have to lay the foundation of the overarching approach to art. I think that will help us as a committee, because I think we're brand new and we're getting, we're just kind of getting our sea legs. But I think that it makes sense that all these other places that are big projects are going to have their own plan, but we need to have something that they're going to be working off of first.
Yep. Danette?
Yeah, you know what? That was a really interesting point that you brought up, because I actually Angel and I had a conversation about that on Friday. Thursday, I'm not sure what day. I was really confused looking at, I think it was Thursday, whenever you sent that out. Or I asked for a copy of the Tacoma, and I was really, because I wanted a hard copy of that one, because I have all the others, because reading online doesn't work for me. So I thought it was our master plan, but I was confused that it was the Baylands. So then she was really trying to explain it to me, and I was like, okay, but I'm kind of feeling like we haven't even done anything. We're trying to think of what to do for our actual project. And we're talking about the park or visitation or walkways. And now I feel like we're going down another area. And I don't know I think I agree that we need to zero in on our master plan, if that needs to be worked on. And then going through all these, I don't know how many inches of paper, 4 inches, it comes out to be 4 inches. I've made it through 5 cities. So I feel like if we're gonna do that and we're gonna work on the Brisbane one as a whole, maybe we talk about 2 cities at a time, because somebody might want to talk about Carlsbad or San Diego or Seattle, and I haven't talked about those. So I'm like, but next week I might have talked. I'm just trying to figure out how do we process all this information. It's a lot. Unless everybody's read everything. I haven't done Carlsbad, San Diego, and Seattle. So I decided to leave the big ones for another time. And I think maybe if we look at our master plan and we agree with our master plan and we feel like that's really solid for Brisbane, maybe we can then add some more components for the Baylands. I still really didn't get a good feeling. I read the Kentucky one, the University of Kentucky. I still didn't come away in any of these with a plan. They'll talk about a developer, but I didn't come away with this is the one that deals with development, new development, and specifically. And some of them just went on and I was I've got lines and notes everywhere. I mean, I took a lot of, I circled a lot of things. I didn't write notes because it was very overwhelming. And I just don't know how to get through this process because I find this to be overwhelming. That's it.
Lisa?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Danette, that it is overwhelming, but I think that one way we could approach this as far as the Baylands is that the Baylands needs some kind of frame. I mean, Brisbane as a whole needs an art direction and an art document. I agree with that. But the Baylands also needs to be kind of put on notice way up front that art will be part of their overall scope when they design and implement whatever they're going to develop out there. Because one of the things I agreed on that I read within the Reno, Nevada report, and Reno is an interesting place because it's so spread out and it's got development going all the time, is that they wanted to include creative art elements in new structures and infrastructure. So having art be part of the whole planning infrastructure and design process when they design whatever development, they should have an art element as part of their development plan that should come to the city. It would be helpful if they had some kind of artistic director or somebody to put them on the spot that art needs to be part of their planning and not an afterthought, not stuff that's stuck in, but something that's part of the whole. Anyways, I just think that as far as the Baylands goes, just because it is such a blank slate, they're going to need some kind of guideline and rules around art that will kind of force them to think about art as they're putting forth building plans. Anyways.
Karen?
So I just got back from Summerlin, Nevada, and I was just keeping my eyes out for anything I saw driving around and all that kind of stuff. And there is a shopping center or a town center with a shopping center outdoor kind of thing attached to it that clearly that thought process, Lisa, was used because there is a child's play structure that is art. And where that child's play structure is placed has over the top of it this incredible looking like sun canopy, but the sun canopy is a magnificent piece of art in of itself. So that obviously became, and I did take a couple of pictures, which I'll forward to Stuart to send to everybody. It was very clear looking at it that this whole thing was meant for everybody's enjoyment, everybody's pleasure, everybody's comfort, and a play structure for kids as almost an afterthought, because walking through this space was very, very creative. So I get exactly what you're talking about there. And yes, we should absolutely have the Baylands on notice that here's some of the direction that we like. Here's some of the things that float our boat. So they're not, doing, the plug and play stuff that you see in so many of the places that get built with, as everybody knows, with the art as an afterthought. The other thing I saw, which again, if we're going to give some visual representation, I don't know how that works with these development types because I haven't had to deal with them. It's like, what's the best way to approach this particular developer? That's another thing we need to think about. It's like each developer has a different way they approach a project. But if we have a developer that functions in a certain way, maybe we should be studying some of this developer's past projects to get an idea of where their head's at relative to art and what they put into their projects. And is that anywhere close to anything that anyone in this room finds appealing, or do we really need to rattle that cage in a very different direction? And I also think that with our public art plan, that I don't think it's just, one thing is going to work. With the Baylands is going to be a very different thought process than what we do here in central Brisbane. I mean, what we like what the people in Old Town Brisbane are probably going to appreciate is going to be a vastly different thing than Sierra Point or the Baylands. So I think maybe we should try and split the whole thought process up and work on that in sections. Here's my 2 cents.
Camille, that's why you had your hand up. You're muted though, so we're not good at lip reading yet.
Oh, come on.
We're trying. We're trying.
Geez. I agree with everything. But I also think in the process of beginning to explore what the master plan is for Brisbane, those elements of how to address and input further down the line art pieces, including the Baylands, will come to light in that document. I agree. They need to be put on notice. And it's important to kind of understand what this particular developer has done before. But I also think by the time plans come around, we're looking still at years down the line. So what we're seeing, what they're doing now may be vastly different than what would be. So for us, in terms of being proactive, I'm pulling for, let's begin the conversation of the Brisbane master plan and what our values are, what our intentions are, how we want to encompass having public work and public art pieces shown, what our goals are, and then we can slip in all of these other things which will begin to address Sierra Point down the line and can be come back to. I also totally believe it's a living document. And that's something that we should all, and I strongly believe that.
Yeah. I mean, it's listening to the conversation. I think one of what I'm hearing to some extent, and obviously correct me of how far off I am, is that there's an overarching values of the community that should be part of the master plan that doesn't change no matter where the art is. But depending on where the art is, there may be subsections of a master plan that have more detailed information about like what maybe the residential area of the Baylands looks like versus what the biotech area of the Bayland looks like versus the open space of the Baylands look like versus the Sierra Point. So what you might have is an overarching values document that then branches out into subsections of different sections of the overall city. But the subsections of the overall city still serve the master of the overall values of the city. If I'm hearing, Lisa's agreeing with me, I see that. So I got 1 thumbs up. But I think that's also what Madison was talking about that overall value first, and then figuring out how do you create it and how do you bring that into different aspects of the city? Because you're right, what you're going to put on Visitation Avenue, the scale of Visitation Avenue is going to be vastly different than the scale of 100, if it is 100-acre open space on the Baylands. You're going to have vastly different types of art, vastly different different feelings, but what you may want to have is the same basic values overriding both. Okay, well then maybe so I mean, and I understand, Danette's perspective of, maybe going, what we probably could have done differently on this one is maybe pick 2 or 3 of the master plans and say, let's talk through those master plans and like what aspects of those master plans that we liked, and to make it more into chunk size conversations. And I apologize for that. I got 2 thumbs up from Camille, so that counts for 2
I was
votes.
gonna say, I don't think it's an apology. I think it's a great strategy. Now that we have this, it's a strategy. And I think it's a good strategy because it becomes clear on what the homework is and what we can really address in a clear fashion.
Lisa?
Just to move the conversation along a little bit, can I put my vote in for the Reno plan? Because the thing about Reno that I related to was that Reno is an old, kind of a gambling mecca, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it didn't really have an arts, an arts message to it at all, especially the way it was developed. And they kind of disparaged their image. They felt like their image was kind of not what they wanted to project anymore. They wanted to elevate their image. And I feel like Brisbane's a little bit in the same boat. We were at one time considered a dump town, and those people out on Sierra Point are going to be building on a dump, and Brisbane was always considered a little less than, not as expensive as, the rest of the peninsula, a little small backwater. And I think that, like Reno, we want to elevate that, and we want to elevate it with art. And that's one way a town's image can be elevated. I think any new construction, by planning art in the infrastructure of any new development of an area like the Baylands, can elevate that from just another cookie cutter development. If art is on the table right from the beginning, in the infrastructure, in the roads, in the way the buildings are situated, if there is art on board within that planning, that makes for Brisbane being elevated. And I think that's what art does. And I think that's what this committee should strive for, is to have the art that's proposed in this document to help us elevate us out of our history. Now, we love our history. We love that we're unique. We love that we're kind of tenacious. Brisbane's tenacious. We break the mold of the entire Bay Area of what a Bay Area town is. But at the same time, I think that we want to bring in a little more culture, and I think art can do that. Anyways, that's where I see this document helping.
So I'm gonna,
No.
sorry, I thought you were done. I apologize. So I'm going to apologize for how I'm going to do this. I'm going to do Karen and then Camille, only because Karen's on the left hand of my screen and then Camille's in the box next to her.
And I was first anyway.
I didn't see, I was watching Lisa while she was talking, and then I see two hands up immediately. I didn't know who went first.
So I was just going to say, before Lisa mentioned the whole Reno thing, I was going to say, why don't we pick one document? Because this whole thing is so big, and then you're trying to compare apples and oranges and bananas and pears and dirt and whatever. So, and yeah, I would thumbs up the idea of Reno, because I was going to suggest, let's pick one place to start and have a look at that. And then if we go, okay, we need to look at something else, then pick another one. If people are still reading through these documents, you might find something that's really interesting in another town and say, hey, I found some really cool stuff in San Diego. Why don't we check that out when we're done, or whatever it is. That's it.
Okay. Okay, so now Camille and then Madison.
I actually was going to say something very different. I think we should I'm all for doing Reno first. It's great. But I think we should do two at a time. And I think there should be two sort of very different master plans on the way they were approached, so that we have some comparison and some areas of what was different between the two. And I agree. And I think that we, in terms of a task, that we stay on those two. And if we have something else, we bringing up later so that we stay on task. But I think it might be interesting to take two different approaches. If it's Reno, then let's take one that feels like it's been totally established and been doing very well, just to see what the difference was for our own kind of exploration.
I'm going to do Madison, then Danette.
So I guess I just also think we should clarify like what we're trying to do with this exercise. Like, are we trying to find a plan that we resonate with so that we can maybe determine who did that work, who was hired for that work for that city, so that we can encourage them to apply to an RFP? Or are we trying to distill down like what our values are, that maybe something that's a master plan mentioned really resonated with how we feel in Brisbane? Like, I think that we're going to be hiring somebody who's going to meet with us and who's really going to have cold community workshops, really engage with our commission to figure out what's important here, and then that's developed into the master plan. And so I'm trying to figure out what the goal is that we're trying to accomplish by going through all of these individual. Is it just the style that they had, or is it the information itself? Or
I mean, for me, the reason I wanted to give, you know, from staff wanted to give a number of different ones is to recognize that there's different styles, there's different ideas and how you can create a master plan. So is there a style of master plan that you like? Are there components in the master plan that you like? Is there, you know, when you look through who the stakeholders were, are there, you know, that's going to be part of the RFP, is that, you know, one of the questions is going to be is how are we going to determine the stakeholders as part of this conversation? And this committee should let the RFP respondents know how, you know, what kinds of stakeholders we anticipate that they will be participating with, so that way they have an idea of how many meetings they're going to have. Because what are the components that you're looking for in a master plan? So if you're looking for a master plan that has some overarching values and then some subsections for different areas of the city, that's different than a master plan that just has an overall value. So I think that my answer to you, Madison, would be it's your second half first. And then if there's truly somebody you sit there that you truly resonate with, then yes, the direction I think that the committee would have is, Stuart, get on the phone with that person to encourage them to apply. As opposed to, I mean, what I will do is we will set this out. We will, you know, do what we normally do with an RFP. We will put it out to the world. We'll put it up on art sites, you know, where people who respond to these types of proposals are, but that doesn't mean that a particular master plan person will see it, will apply for it. And if we think that, oh, this person has a really good aesthetic for us, it just means that I can send out a letter with the RFP to that person, even if they don't solicit it. I can follow up with a phone call to say, yeah, you know, we are, you know, not to say that, you know, you're going to get it, but we are interested in the style that you do. You've shown, we liked what you did in Reno. We liked what you did in Belmont. We liked what you did in Pasadena. Pick the city. And we thought it was intriguing, and we would at least want to have the conversation. So if you can put in if you can put in a proposal, that would be great. And if you can't, let me know why, so that way I can report back to the committee what's going on. And I thought I saw somebody else's hand go up while I was talking.
My turn.
Yep.
I was gonna make the recommendation that, so I have the documents in front of me. Seattle, Reno, San Diego, and Carlsbad are pretty large documents. And I think when we do those, they should be one at a time. Some of the other ones are smaller, like we could combine like Belmont with Pasadena or something like that, but those are pretty big documents. So I think to go through, like the Seattle is one of the smaller of the bigger ones, and that's like 55 pages. A lot of them don't have the amount of pages. So that's the smallest of the big group, 58, 59, let's just say 60. So that's my recommendation on that. And I just need clarification now, because now I got a little confused. Are we looking through this and we're gonna say we like the style, and then we're gonna find an art consultant to help us come up with a master plan like Reno or Seattle? Is that what we're doing, or we're coming up with our own? Now I need a little more clarification on that for the Baylands. We're talking about the Baylands.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, so what I've heard is that we would like to have one master plan for the overall city. That the master plan will have a general area within it that speaks to the overall idea of art and values within the city. We would then ask the master plan creator to help us define subsections and define sub areas of the city and put in some design guidelines for art within those sub guidelines. So I think that's how I've heard the conversation so far. And we can talk about that, the committee can talk about that some more. That what we're looking for now is what are the components that you're seeing within, what are the sections within these RFPs that you have in front of you that you like and you want to see in a master plan for the city. So for instance, you have, and I've got Reno up first, because that's the first one in my thing. It's the first section 1, community involvement. Do you want to have a community involvement section of a master plan? Do you want to have a support for artists section in a master plan? Maybe that's not, after reading them, maybe you say, oh, it's not as important because these other sections are important for us. So what are the chapters that you would like to have in the master plan? So that way, when we put out an RFP, we can say, here's what we're expecting you to come back with. And that way, when they propose to you and they talk to you about what they do, they can explain, here's how we go about developing that section for you. And the biggest challenge, anytime you do something like this, and Madison and Karen, you probably have seen it, is that sometimes you will get proposals that are cookie cutter proposals that could have been for any community. And you don't really feel as if they've actually taken into account what your community is interested in. And they really fit their method. They fit your community into their method as opposed to finding a method for your community. And I think that's, when we say, here's what we want, and then you say, how do you go about doing that? And if you're hearing back in the responses when you're having conversations with them, we have a very set style of how we do it. That may not be who you want to have. And, I in my 35 years, I've seen it both ways, where you have really good proposals and you have other people who say, I don't care what you're doing, I'm going to do the same thing no matter what, because it's worked for me in 30 other cities. And that's just what we're going to do.
Well, I don't think we would choose one of those people. And I'm not just speaking for myself. This is a very fiercely independent group of people, number one. And number two, so is our town. It's like, no, you're not going to tell us what we want. We're going to tell you what we want. And if you can't work around that, you're probably not the person we want to work with. Whichever project it is, whether it's a little project or a big one,
Absolutely. But I think what you need to do is you need to give them the parameters as to what you're expecting to see from their results. And the more you can tell them, like, what are the sections you want, what are the ideas you want, the better that they can tailor a proposal and a method for finding that for you. And that's what I think this next step is to go through the different master plans and say that section was important. It really helped me understand what they're doing in the master plan. I see Camille's hand up.
I think our next step is to take Reno and decide which is the second one we want and be prepared for us all to read them. And the next time say, this worked for me in this one. I like the way they approach this. I didn't like this, and take that step. And that's step number one. And then if we want to continue, we take 2 more or for whatever it takes. It's a system. And I think it's a good system.
That makes sense. And I'm thinking, I agree with Lisa. I was actually there at the very beginning of the art stuff for Reno, and it was fascinating how they changed their city around. And I work with Christine, who is their art person, which is kind of humorous to me because Christine was a planner who really wasn't an artist, but she was actually able to turn Reno around into a very art-oriented city. So I thought that was just, Reno is a phenomenal case of how do you make a city into something different. And
That's true.
I know Christine, and I think that was just a great success story for her.
It's also evolving. which I think is great because they're constantly building and evolving and trying to make their master plan fit with a very burgeoning building area. And so it's not like Pasadena, it's not a set place. And
Right.
I think Brisbane's on the cusp of that too.
I was thinking Pasadena may not
That's
be,
what I,
may have been a good one because that is such an established city.
Mhm.
It's at the very opposite end of, because the other one I was thinking was Belmont because it's close, but Belmont is not going to be like Brisbane when all is said and done. Brisbane has going to be, has a lot more canvases to work with than Belmont does. Camille, I'm pointing, that doesn't
yeah,
help.
I
does it?
understand. Oh, no, it doesn't.
Because
That may all be true, but I don't think our task is to decide which ones. I thought our task was to look and go through as many of them as we could and decided to do like 2 per
Right.
meeting and go through them. So that being said, it may be interesting to juxtapose one that does not fit, that we assume does not fit with Brisbane, or just to say, oh, I learned something and for sure we do not want this, or but this is interesting what they did. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Because
no,
it helps with dialogue.
yes. Karen,
So when you look further to what Camille just said, if you want to juxtapose, then that's probably a really great idea. I mean, Belmont has basically followed the cookie cutter structure of let's turn San Mateo County into Cell Block Central. And they're going down that road. So it might be good for us to look at Belmont and say, eek, we can't do that. So I agree.
Camille,
Or, yeah, I agree. And I say, even if we look at Belmont and say, that's not what we want, there still may be something in the Belmont that we say, oh, but this little one item is interesting. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't think we should limit ourselves. That's all. And I think juxtaposing is a great way of doing it.
Mhm.
okay. And I think that's what Danette was saying, is that she'd want to go through all of them at some point, but just do it in a way where it's more structured than a free-for-all conversation. That, oh, I liked Seattle, and this is what I liked in Seattle, and this is what I liked in San Diego, and this is what I liked, as opposed to being able to go through each of them more thoroughly, I think is what I heard from Danette. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to say that Reno is still a pretty thick document. I think Reno could be on its own. That's just my personal opinion. And some of the smaller ones you could combine, because we're going to look at them all anyhow, but Reno is still a pretty big document. So I don't know.
Camille,
Could we consider doing one big document with one smaller document, just so that we can have juxtaposition? I mean, I know that that's a lot of reading, but I think that it would be really important to have that balance instead of just doing one, because then we're not stirring the pot, so to speak. We're not providing different ideas that are happening.
and I will say that I don't think you're looking at this, you're not reading this as you would read a novel.
Right.
You're reading this like you would read a textbook, where
Right.
you're looking for the main themes. Yeah. When I was in school, I read every word of every textbook, and my kids telling me, oh my God, well, how did you do that? What you do is you look at the chapters, you say, what are the interesting chapters? You pick out 1 or 2 kinds of interesting aspects within the chapter, but you don't need to read every recommendation, because the recommendation is specific to the city. It's really reading the opening paragraph of the section that becomes more important. So if you do that, the reading will be it won't be as time consuming of reading. And you won't, and don't feel as if like, oh, it's like, I didn't read that. And people are going to think, oh, I'm going to get a B as opposed to my A for reading. And it's like, this is just really getting the feel for the document as opposed to digging deep into it. So hopefully, Danette, that might help give you a better feel for, we're not expecting to read 100 pages of Reno's document. we're expecting you to read maybe 30 paragraphs just to get the overall feel for it. Unless the committee is going to disagree, but Lisa, I see you. And
Oh, sorry.
I keep pointing at you and it doesn't help because A, my hand isn't on the screen.
Yeah,
and
yeah, no,
B,
it doesn't work.
I'm pointing at 8 people at a time.
We're all in different spots. Okay, so I liked Reno. Is there anyone who had another favorite? I'm just throwing it out there.
Madison, I see your hand up.
Oh, I was just mainly saying like, I think we should do two because then it's gonna take us such a long time, like to go through them all in terms of meetings.
And we'll have 4 weeks before the next one, because I think I believe we're going in between, or every other one is going to be about the master plan, and then the
Right,
other
because
one's
the
going
next one, we
to
wanted to talk about the actually getting a piece of, and that becomes an interesting question is, do you want to, I mean, I would think we want to move forward with looking at the area behind the bathroom at the park before we finish a master plan, because otherwise we'll be 2 years out before we before we do anything. So, I mean, but I think that, so that was, as Angel says, that was the goal, is that we'd spend one meeting on dealing with the master plan, one meeting dealing with the area behind the park, then go back and forth. So we can get 2 things done within the year.
Right.
So there is 4 weeks in between between meetings.
So going back to what Lisa asked, what's the vote for the
I
second
see
one?
Camille has her hand up, so maybe she has a
Yeah,
suggestion.
I was gonna say, my suggestion is I'd like to go with Reno, and then I'd like to go with one of the more smaller cookie cutter ones, whether it's Pasadena, Belmont, or any one of those, I'm fine. But those seem to be in a real juxtaposition from what Reno's about. So if we can decide on either one of those, or if there's a third, but I agree that Belmont and Pasadena. And then there was one other one that was kind of a cookie cutter, but I can't remember what it was.
It was
But
probably the one right after Belmont, because it was done by the same person.
yeah, and I can't remember what town that was, but let's, get one of those just to see if that's okay with everybody, or if someone has a preference for another one. But I think, we could vote on getting Reno, which I think we're all on board for, and then another one that's more smaller and kind of, and I hate to use the word cookie cutter, but a little more works in a lane, so to speak.
I vote for Belmont just because it's local and we can look at it and kind of, if we want to go there and see how it looks, I think that would, I don't know, that just seems like it'd be useful.
I see Karen has her thumbs up for Belmont.
Anyone
Neil
else?
does. That's 3.
Anybody have the other?
Danette's fine with it too. Okay, so yeah, so next time, so in 4 weeks, we would do Belmont and Reno. Yeah, actually Pasadena and Belmont were done by the same person. That's why they both look cookie cutter. Because, and that's what I'm saying, is that ultimately, sometimes you end up getting something that looks like that they just kind of fit their results into whatever product they have. And that's a good example of it. Anyway, okay, so that takes care of, I think, where we need to be for today.
Real quick, I'm sorry, Stuart, real quick question. Is it useful, and do we have a deadline or a timeline that we need to follow for the master plan in relation to matching how the Baylands is rolling out, which you're right, it's going to take many years, but they're going to be coming back like a development agreement. So is there like a loose timeline that maybe you should perhaps create for us for our next master plan meeting? So we have okay, we need to really start pushing forward to put an RP out. We really should receive proposals by now, something like that.
Right. Let me talk with John about that, and maybe at the next, I know we're going to talk about the area behind the bathroom at the next meeting, but let me also talk to John, see if I can get in touch with him between now and then to put together somewhat of if I can get a sense of the timeline for where the Baylands is, to give a sense of maybe, my guess is that in the meetings I've sat through, I think the Baylands is going to be submitting their plan within the next couple of months. And then you got the sequel review process, and then you got the planning commission process, then you got the city council process. But I think by the time it starts getting to the city council is when there should be some indication of what the master plan is going to be looking like. And I think the idea is that it's going to get to the council probably sometime in 2023 is my guess. But let me check with John. Karen, I see your hand is up.
I just want to say, Stuart, if you can let John know to give the developer a heads up that we're assertively working on this.
He is aware.
But are they?
I mean, he's had conversations about incorporating art, and that we've talked about doing a master plan. So he's aware, but I will bring it up with him the next time I meet with him too.
Yeah, just to
Yep.
let them know that we're really pushing forward with this and to expect some ideas.
Yes. Absolutely. I think maybe at the other item for the next meeting, if we can, I know I've raised it in the past, but maybe as opposed to having staff chair the meetings, if somebody on the committee would like to be the chair, that might be something that you want to discuss. Because I will say it's unusual for me, in none of the other committees or commissions do we have staff chair them. And I don't know if you like having me chair them or if you want somebody else to chair them. But normally we try and just support the committee and not guide the conversation. So it's up to you what you want to do, but it's not on the agenda tonight, but if I put it on the agenda, the next time you can have a conversation about, maybe picking a chair and a vice chair. And I know the council wants to, at some point, try and get all the committees and commissions having similar kinds of bylaws and guidelines. So.
So yes, is that of interest for Stuart, or as what Stuart said, to explore?
Okay, so hopefully we'll have 3 items on the agenda next time. Hopefully 2 of them will be fairly quick and 1 of them will be what we spend most of the bulk of our time on.
Okay.
So as we're wrapping up here, I have not received any public comment. No one has joined our meeting. Let me just double check.
Do we have the dates for the next one? Are we doing it on March 8th?
That's right.
I don't know if I don't have it on my calendar, so I don't know if we've actually set the dates yet. But
No.
everybody's here.
So let's see here. One moment.
Be March 1st.
Yeah, what are the dates? So Tuesdays have been working great for people. You want to do the March 1st and
Well, we have 5 Tuesdays in March. Do you want to do 3 meetings in March or do you want to do 2 meetings in March?
Wait, part of
I
March.
see Beth has 3 fingers up. I'm kidding, Beth. I saw 2. Okay, so do we want to do March 8th and March 22nd? To give you a little bit of a breather in between? Okay. Does that not work, Angel?
So the 22nd, we have a Luna Fest ad hoc already scheduled. It should only go 4 to 5. I mean, you could potentially go right then into
5 to 6 on this one.
5 to
Yeah, but the March 22nd one would be the one about the going over the Reno and the Belmont plan. Do we want to do?
Or
do we want to do back to back 8th and 15th? We could do the 8th and the 29th.
Does first not work? 1st and 15th not work?
1st and 15th could work.
I'm away on the 15th.
Oh.
well, so it sounds like the 1st, 8th, and 29th are available.
How about 8th and 29th?
Okay. Can I then ask from a staff perspective to talk about April? Can we do April 5th and April 19th. I'm actually taking vacation the week of the 11th.
I'm out of town the 19th, but I mean,
Okay.
you're happy to, you guys can meet without me.
Well, we could do the 5th and 22nd, 26th and still get 2 meetings in.
Wait, for April?
Yeah, I mean, if we do the 5th and the 26th, that'll still be 2 meetings in April, if everybody can make those.
So that would be back to back though for 2 Tuesdays, which is fine.
No, 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 no.
Okay, no, darn, okay.
Wait, you got muted, Camille.
I thought he said the 5th and the 26th of April. I'm sorry.
Yes, well, what I said was the 8th. what
Oh,
we said
and the
was 8th
29th.
8th and 29th of March, and then the 5th and the 26th, which would put the 29th and the 5th
Okay.
back to back.
I see what you're saying. I'm fine. It's left to you guys.
Okay,
5th and 26th.
Beth?
My schedule is completely up in the air. I'll do my best, plan as you will, and I'll do my best to be there.
Okay,
Okay, well, I haven't received any public comments at all. No one's joined our meeting. I don't have any text or emails from anybody. And I will send out the new dates. Does that sound good for everybody?
Sounds great.
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.